Hi, honey.
Hey, baby.
How are you?
I'm good.
You sure?
I have a lot going through my mind right now. We just came from a really interesting business meeting, you and I, with somebody who I met with before who's been really like helpful and providing a lot of good advice and guidance over the last month or so. And I've actually like mentioned some of the conversations that we've had with this person on this podcast, in both in both positive and negative ways. And he's coming around to convincing me that maybe he's got some good points that we might need to explore further.
For sure. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about that.
If we have.
Oh. Hey. Oh.
Hey, how are you? We have some guests. Oh my, what the hell? What's up, dude? We're gonna keep this in. What's up, dude? How are you?
This is the first
So
time.
whose bag is this?
Are you guys mine? Just kidding.
Yeah.
We are.
Oh shit.
No, that's all
Yeah,
good.
right?
No, yeah, we can edit this all out. This was weird. Yeah, we're here every week.
Someone's bag is here. We put it right here.
Where can I see this?
On you, I'll send you a link.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you the link when we get out of here.
Yes, I'm
I need to move to the
I
east
see you
side.
guys
Jared.
all the fucking
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
What was your name?
Prevents.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, these.
Yeah, they're all
Regulars.
This is just strange in general.
We should like do an episode.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's like I'm seeing three people completely out of context.
Yeah, no, for sure.
We just shot the shit right before you.
Yeah, well, I'll send you the link and then you share it,
Yeah,
please.
yeah.
Cool,
Yeah.
awesome.
So-
Yeah, and apologies.
No, this is all
You're
good.
fine. We'll figure out who's
See ya, bye. I don't think we're gonna edit that. I think we'll keep that in. That was fine.
And also, there is a bag here. I don't know whose bag that is.
Sure.
I
Fun.
was like, this random bag? He's like, no, another one. What
Fun.
the fuck?
All right. Well,
All right.
where was I?
So yeah, we're gonna get back to that meeting.
Yeah,
After
well,
our
I think
discussion.
we have a topic that we're gonna talk about, but maybe we don't draw that out so much, and maybe we just debrief.
Yeah, because
right
we
here.
typically would like after a meeting like that,
Sure.
like go on a walk and
Yeah.
discuss. But like this is like a perfect platform for it. So like everyone can see the inner workings of
In
that
real
brain.
time. Yeah, in real time. Well, that would be a weird episode.
That's gonna happen.
It's like, because normally we have the conversations on the walks,
Yeah,
and then
and
we're
you-
like, oh, that would be good for the
Yeah.
podcast. Like, maybe we'll kind of like touch on that. But it's already been processed, and to actually watch me really process something in real time would be interesting.
For sure.
Or us processing. Okay, let's do it.
But I think we should definitely talk about our week.
Yeah,
It's been a very wonderful week.
it's been a fast week.
Yeah. But I think I was on a high all week from Monday night.
Yep.
It was the best Monday night ever.
Explain why.
You explain how you like can't do it now, like smiling the whole thing.
If you guys recall, a few weeks ago on the podcast, Puzzle had mentioned that she, one of her big goals is to meet.
Sorry, I said that I keep my house is a reflection of me, and I keep it like ready for when I meet Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Because like meeting like Joe Rogan is the best podcaster ever, like the king of podcasts. Like my goal in the next 3 years is to be on Joe Rogan, and it's something that we talk about a lot, and we kind of hold that as like the pinnacle in terms of the person that we could associate with and be associated with.
Yeah, and like just things falling into place.
Yeah.
With meeting him, and I feel like I've been saying that now for a long time, and it happened on Monday night.
Officially, what happened on Monday night? Say it.
We met Joe Rogan and hung out in the green room at the Comedy Mothership.
Yeah,
here
we were
Austin.
in the fucking green room at the Comedy Mothership with Joe Rogan and Tony Hinchcliffe and a bunch of other people. For Kill Tony, Joe. I shouldn't say that.
Yeah. This will come
But
out later.
and honestly, like, there's only so much I think is probably appropriate to tell.
Yeah, for sure.
About this, but man, is that not like it was like being in a dream?
But
We like people who know us and people who are fans of the podcast, they may or may not know we are like huge comedy nerds. There's really like we're nerds. We're comedy nerds, stand-up comedy especially, and especially like in the Austin scene. Like we know underground like Austin comedians that like many people probably have no idea who they are, and we'll be like, oh yeah, we saw him at Roscoe's or whatever.
We saw him at Soho House's Thursday night comedy
or that
show.
guy's been on Kill Tony like twice, and like Kill Tony's are the one show that we are like completely religious about that we watch
Monday nights,
and it's like definitely I would say like comedy has become like a really big part of our life, and something that like on a night if we don't have anything to go do, we're like, well, what comedy shows are happening? Is there something at like Soho House? Is there a comedy show at Pershing or Roscoe's or Mothership? Or like always, that's like one of our go-to moves is like we don't go to the movies. We go to concerts sometimes, but usually those are like a little bit more planned in advance. Yeah. For us, like if we got nothing to do, like we're just gonna go to a stand-up comedy show, and that for us is like the pinnacle.
It was amazing.
So give a little bit of background as to how we got to hang out with Joe Rogan. Literally had a conversation with Joe Rogan in the Mothership green room, dude. I still can't believe it.
Basically, through a friend, I met a wife of a comedian here in Austin, and her and I have become pretty close, and we set up a dinner.
Let me just say, so that the comedian is somebody who moved here recently, as a lot of comedians have in Austin. This is going to be an episode that's largely about comedy, so if you don't like to hear about comedy, you could tune out, I guess. But it's a lot of comedians. Because Joe Rogan moved here during COVID, a lot of comedians started to come here. He said he was going to build like the best comedy club in the country here in Austin, and it took him about 3 years or so to actually make that happen. So there was like some people that had moved here and then moved away, and it was kind of like in the comedy community is sort of like this.
Like, is it ever going to open kind of thing?
Is it ever going to open? Is it real? But even with that, because so many people had moved here, comedy was already blowing up. So you still had Kill Tony here, which is kind of like the epicenter of the comedy community is Tony Hinchcliffe's Kill Tony live podcast. For a long time, they did it for a few months, they did it out of Antone's. Then they did it out of Vulcan, and Vulcan quickly became the center of the comedy community here in Austin. There's a lot of other clubs that opened,
like
and
all along Dirty Six, and like Dirty Six is like it has now like Monday nights comedy stand-up shows. And
a lot of that is just due to the fact that Joe Rogan moved here and said he was going to open the best comedy club. And big comedians have moved here from the coast, from LA and New York. Those places are no longer really, it's not to say that they're not comedy hubs. They clearly are, but Austin is really the biggest comedy city in the world right now. And it's really just because of Joe Rogan and the Mothership and his community coming here. And one of the biggest comedians in the world, who again, we're not going to name, but one of the biggest comedians in the world has a podcast and he has a co-host. And both of them moved here last year. And it's one of the only, again, like we don't watch much TV. It's one of the only things that we watch regularly, and we're huge fans of the show. And it just so happens that she met his wife, and they've become friends.
And so then we're set to have a dinner.
This is literally nothing that like we had done any like sketchiness
or schemed or anything.
It was literally just like happenstance.
The universe was like, here you go, and I was like,
Bizarre.
Oh, okay. And so just again developing friendship, and we had plans for a dinner that then had to be rescheduled due to something that came up. Yeah. And it ended up being
and I'll say like up until this point, like she's she's been with the wife a number of times. She's met the husband, who's the comedian, a couple times. I've never met either of them. So like I again am a fan of this guy, and I'm like, this is kind of wild that I'm going to drinks and dinner with this dude. Like, this is going to be cool. Like, I can't wait. But I, like, didn't have any expectations. I was kind of, like, didn't give it much thought because I was kind of like, maybe it falls through. I just didn't want to even give it much energy. because of like mainly because of like how weird it was in the first place.
For
that
sure,
it was
you're
even
like, I can't believe
happening.
we're gonna go to dinner with him. I'm
Yeah,
like, I know,
I know.
it's tomorrow night. Like, here we go, what's happening?
And yeah, so then it was supposed to be one night. They rescheduled for a Monday night, the following Monday night, and so I'm already thinking like, who knows? Like maybe they just keep pushing. Yeah, whatever.
So then we're about to call an Uber.
So we were going for drinks at one place, then we were going to go to dinner at another place.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, important to the story.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. So we're about to call an Uber. I get a text from her saying, "Hey, do you know Joe Rogan or Tony Hinchcliffe?" And I was like, "Yes."
Well, I think she said, "Do you know Kill Tony with Tony Hinchcliffe and Joe Rogan?" Yeah.
And I was like, "Yes." I'm like, "That's one of my favorite shows, our favorite shows." And then she calls me, and essentially, her husband, comedian, was contacted by Tony to be on the show that night.
On Kill Tony.
On Kill Tony.
The night that we're getting in the Uber to go to dinner with them, and they called to say, yeah, he got the text that he's going to be on Kill Tony.
And so she's like, I mean, do you guys mind if we do just dinner and drinks at the one spot and not go to the dinner, and we'll have VIP tickets for the show? And I was like, what the fuck is happening? I had to like pull the phone like away from my face to be like, to look at you and be like, are we good with this? Like, duh, of course.
I was like, I don't know, fajitas sound pretty good.
So we go to dinner and drinks.
And you have to understand, like, this is cool in general. Like, that's obviously, like, kind of a cool thing anyway. Even if you don't watch Kill Tony and you barely know what it is, it's kind of like, oh, you're going to be on a comedy show and we go to that instead?
Yeah.
And I can, like, have VIP to a comedy show? Like, sure. That seems like something that most people would be pretty stoked about. For us,
like, as actual, like, we watch this every single week. And, like, this show sells out. They drop 3 months in advance. It sells out in minutes.
And
like, you can't get tickets to
And
this
for those of you that don't know, Kill Tony it was pretty popular when it came here to Austin, but it has blown up tremendously since moving to Austin, to the point where in the last 2 months they've sold out 4 arenas. The Kia Center,
That's right. And Madison Square Garden
twice. Yeah. The Kia Center, and then the other one that's in LA. The YouTube.
Oh yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
So like, and then they, again, every 3 months they release the tickets. Mm-hmm. They're sold out immediately, and we're on there as fast as I don't know how anybody's on there faster than us.
I have tabs open. I have friends who have tabs open. Like, none of us can get tickets.
Yeah. So like.
And people like fly in. One of the crazy things that night we were there, Tony asked, like, in the beginning, like, how many of you live in Austin? And like some of the audience clapped.
It was probably it was probably about 30% of the audience clapped, saying that they live in Austin.
And then, as he said, how many of you flew into Austin specifically for this show?
And then
the crowd. Yeah, I couldn't believe that.
Yeah, and like I would think the people that flew in probably were a little bit louder, but like it was at least 50-50.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
But
probably
more with the people that had flown in. So like again, and for us, like we've used to get tickets pretty frequently. And we even tried to do standby line.
Oh my God, and that was impossible.
A couple weeks ago, or about a month or two ago, and like we didn't even come close.
Yeah, and we were like number 5 and 6 in line.
Yeah.
And they're like, we only have 2 tickets left.
So it's a tough show to get into at this point. And if you haven't been to the Mothership, the security there is like no joke.
Oh yeah.
It's not a door guy checking your ID. It's like an entire process that you have to go through from one line to another, several security checks. They put your phones in bags. And then like...
Remember they used to take your IDs? Like that first week we went there, it was for when it opened for South by weekend. Yeah. We went for your birthday. And I remember them like taking our ID and like scanning it into the computer. I was like, what what is happening?
And like there's people posted at all the different doors. Because again, like this is a high profile comedy place with a lot of high profile celebrities that come in there. To the point where like, I don't know if I should say specifics, but there was like famous people that we saw that were not related to comedy and were clearly there because of Joe Rogan. I'll just say a scientist, a very famous scientist was there, which is a funny thing to say, but he was sitting like 2 seats away from me, like this really famous scientist. So
It
like,
wasn't Bill Nye.
and this is up in the VIP balcony. So there is like, there's a lot of security to get through this, let alone like again, to get tickets and to get to the green room.
Yeah.
I'm just blown away by it.
I
You can
know.
tell I'm giddy about it. But
Same here.
So okay, so she called us.
Yeah, so we go to dinner and drinks.
We're just gonna like
I know,
we're like
sorry, this is
taking
like-
way too long to
But
tell this
I'm a
story. But
fangirl.
what the hell else is a podcast for? But to tell this story. This is the coolest thing that's ever happened.
So we go to dinner and drinks, and again, I've met them before, so this was your first time.
Yeah.
And I think you did something really important where you basically said like, "Hey, it'd be weird if I didn't say this,
Yeah.
but like we listen to you every single week, so like I'm a fan, but like this is really cool."
What happened was like we because again we were gonna go to get drinks first, and then go to dinner, but we decided to just do drinks and grab something to eat there, and then go to Kill Tony immediately after. And so we got there first. They showed up, and again, immediately kind of weird, like,
Yeah.
just immediately kind of strange. And
But
then
like, I don't know, it felt so easy.
it
and
felt fine.
natural.
No, of course it did, but it was
Yeah.
just like I don't know, it was
I know,
just
you're
bizarre.
meeting, yeah.
And like I don't get like starstruck really ever, but it was just like because it's like it's not like I just like ran into him in the street or
Yeah,
something.
it
It's
was
kind of
very
like
planned.
it's like kind of like a planned like intimate evening together, I guess you could say. And it's like I never even met him before,
Yeah.
but I listen to him every week.
Yeah.
So it's just a very strange situation. And like immediately, like he was like, "I'm sorry that this. Thank you for being
Yeah.
flexible."
They kept apologizing to
And I was
us,
like,
and
dude, you
like,
do
"Yo."
not have to apologize, dude. Like, this is the coolest thing that it could have happened. And I said, like, it'd be weirder if I didn't say this. I was like, but we are actually very big fans of your podcast and of you. And, like, we listen every week.
Yeah.
And, like, the only other podcast that we really listen to every week is Kill Tony. So, like, I'm not, like, I don't want to be that weird guy, but, like, it'd be stranger if I didn't
Yeah.
acknowledge that. So, like...
And he's like,
What's
awesome,
up? So like,
perfect,
what's up?
Yeah. And then so we had a really great dinner, caught up. We were talking about all sorts of different things. And then he left for the show because he had to get there a little bit earlier than us. We got in the Uber. It was my friend. We had over there, and I mean, it was like. In my brain, like, picture, like, the scene of, if everyone knows Goodfellas, like, walking through the back kitchen and everything. Like, we walk in and get up through the back staircase, going past, like, security. And they're like, oh, hey. And, like, we get to the top of the stairs, and there's the iron
Well, hold
door.
up. So what happened was we walked in, and at first, I didn't know that. Like she said, VIP balcony, but there's two VIP balconies.
Yes,
there's the green
that's
room
true.
balcony, and there's the VIP
Which I
balcony.
never knew which one was which.
I knew which one was which.
Oh.
Because you could see people up there every so
Yeah.
often. So I'm thinking we're going to the other VIP
Yeah.
balcony, which is like, I mean, it's very cool, but it's not the green room balcony.
Yeah.
And so we actually like with his wife start to head towards that balcony, and like somebody from security or somebody was like, no, you guys are coming this way. And then we like walk up the stairs, like I think it was like 3 flights of stairs. But like the entire time, like I'm like, what's about to happen? Like, where are we going? And we get to the top, and the comedian and Tony Hinchcliffe are there, and basically like, and we've seen Tony before. Like we've met Tony a handful of times, and not to say that we know him or he really knows us, but like we've been in each other's presence enough where like I think he recognizes us, right? Like. We've
sure.
been
And,
we've
like-
been like formally introduced to him like several times.
Yeah, and like we also don't when we do see him out like in the wild, if you put it, like we're not like running up and be like, oh Tony, what's up?
Yeah.
And like we just kind of like
Yeah.
what like
And, like,
not fan in front of
I
him.
think he knows that I think he's seen us enough to know that we're fans.
but
But
also understand like we're gonna give you space.
Yeah,
like, we're not
I
gonna,
don't
like,
know.
Yeah, it's not
I don't
weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
But anyway, like we got to the top of the stairs and the comedian's there and Tony I think I'm almost positive like he recognized us. I don't have any reason to suspect otherwise because like he acknowledged us in like a way where
Yeah, gave us hugs.
and then he
like,
gave us like big hugs and he's like you guys are going this way. Like there was 2 options again at the top. We could have gone to the other balcony or we could have gone through the green room. And he's like, no, you guys are coming this way. And we went through the green room and like I just like kept my head down the entire time. Like I didn't want to like look at anything. I didn't want to like. I felt like I've never felt so uncomfortable. Like I don't know how to say it. Like I felt like I just wanted to make myself small, and I never feel that way.
I mean, you could. That moment that door opened, you could feel that
you could
energy.
smell the weed.
But you also could feel that energy of like comedic like geniuses
Yeah.
like sitting in there.
Yeah.
And just like
And they're having
the
so
energy
much
was
fun.
so
And like
yeah, we walked through and I'm like
the only person who's like not famous up there, basically. Like, right? Like yes, we have a podcast, but we're certainly not famous, and we're certainly probably the least watched podcast of anybody in that room at that point by a large margin. And yeah, I was like, do I belong here? I'd never feel that way.
But
I understand why I did, and like we basically like walked through the green room to the balcony, and then they like were like, here, you guys sit here, and we sat down, and I just like didn't know what to do for a little
like
while.
looking like straight ahead.
I was like, I don't want to move. I was like,
after like 5 minutes.
I was like, any wrong move could get me kicked out of here.
Oh my God. After like 5 minutes, like Tony actually came out on the balcony, and then like right behind him, Joe walked out. And so it's like me, you, a chair, and then the two of them are like standing.
Yeah.
And I like looked over, and Joe's like looking around and like in our direction. I was like quickly like turned my head to be like, and then like I see your eyes be like this.
And I'm just like, I was like, don't make any sudden moves.
Oh my God.
I was
and
like, do I ignore? Yeah, I know.
I like scratch your back, like calm down, like we're good. But I see your like crocodile eyes are like jetting.
It is me, Poozle, the comedian's wife, Tony Hinchcliffe, and Joe Rogan in a
like
balcony the size of this table, basically. Maybe twice the size of this table.
So then like they go back into the green room. We're like sitting there. A couple more people come out. Scientists included, and some of the other like Austin comedians come out that like we know and have seen like a handful of times now at this point. And show goes on. It was a great show. We're going back and forth of the green room to like one go to the bathroom or to go to the bar. Like I'm standing in the green room.
I should say during the show, like
God.
like we were in the green, like we were told originally that there was going to be a waitress.
Yeah.
So we were just kind of like sitting there waiting for the waitress. But eventually they were just like, there's no waitress. Like you guys can just go make your own drinks. So like we're in the green room, like making drinks with like Joe Rogan's liquor. And there's like other comedians in there, and they're all like bullshitting and smoking weed and
get out
stuff.
of my way for me to get to the bar. They're like, I'm sorry, and like scooted up. I was like, this is fucking surreal.
So like, so
and
obviously
I had
like
dreams that I'd been in this green room, which is weird.
Yeah, you've dreamed it before. And like I kind of like calmed down after a while, of course, especially once the show started. I like loosened up.
Like then we're high also.
Yeah.
Like,
so like by 30 minutes into Kill Tony, I was like back at the bar, like mixing up drinks. Like I was fine. I chilled out, especially because the big names were on stage at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, but that was bizarre.
Yeah.
That was
then
bizarre.
We're leaving.
And like, there's also like, as you're leaving the green room, there's a big neon sign that says "Get it together, bitch," and that's like a sign that like Joe and a lot of people talk about like regularly. It's kind of like, I think, iconic like for them.
And it's great too because it's like on. I don't know if you just said this, but it's like on the way out of the green room. It's like right there to the left. You're about to push open the door to go on stage, and it's like, get it together. It's a really very motivating sign.
Yeah.
So as we're leaving the green room, Joe is standing underneath that sign.
Yeah.
And the comedian and his wife stop to talk to him. And she goes, "Oh, these are our friends, Katelyn and Jared." And I was like...
And we're just like huddled up in a, 5-person little circle with Joe Rogan. And we're having a conversation for 5 minutes maybe about the show and about different comedians. And like, I again introduced myself to Joe Rogan. We interacted and spoke.
You said something and he was like, "What'd you say?" And like, you had to repeat it.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh yeah," and like played off of it. I was like, God, this is happening.
Yeah.
But it felt so right.
It felt bizarrely right. Bizarrely
and it felt like
right.
so comfortable and like
yeah, especially at that point, I was like, I was
Yeah.
a lot more chilled out.
and like I was like, okay, yeah, we're just standing here talking to these people, like it's all good, and it's where I'm exactly supposed to be.
At some point, 5 years from now, when we're
gonna replay this for Joe?
when we've been on Joe Rogan like 2 or 3 times, somebody's gonna be like, "Look at this like weird clip of these guys being such like psycho fanboys and girls for Joe Rogan," and then they're gonna go,
Well, look.
well, I think, or maybe they find this before we get on Joe, and this prevents us from seeing him because we're weird.
I mean,
No, we've.
I don't think so.
I know.
Did we act like?
No, I'm joking. But now, like, we're letting it all out. We're letting our excitement out.
No, because it was a goal.
It was sick. It was sick.
And then we hung out at Mitzi's with the.
Yeah, and then there's like after. So Mitzi's is the bar at the Comedy Mothership Club, and it's open to the public until 11.
Yeah.
And then they close it at 11. And they make it comedians only or like VIP only. And yeah, we got to hang out there for I don't know an hour and a half with our comedian friend, his wife. Tony was down there. A bunch of other comedians were down there. We got to we sat around and talked to Tony for a little while, which was really cool. Again, not like the first time that we've spoken with him, but like we had like a real exchange, like a real conversation with him, which was pretty sweet. And here we are just being like total fanboys again. Like I'm being such a fanboy, but I am. Get
together, bitch.
I know. I mean, it's a good thing that sign was there because, like,
Yeah,
I was
right.
basically looking at Joe Rogan and looking at the "Get It Together, bitch" sign, and I was like, noted.
And yeah, that's fine.
He was literally standing underneath that sign.
I know. It was so cool. But yeah, everything I have dreamt of, and I said it here on this podcast, and I had it in place. Like, all I'm just saying, it's
Manifesting, it's crazy.
It's happening, and like.
So, and I also hope that if your friend is watching this at some point, that she also doesn't think that we're like crazy.
No, but I think it's just interesting of like how things have just presented themselves.
I know, it's weird.
Like we always talk about the universe giving you things and taking this, if like this feels right and you're doing it for this reason, like you're doing it with love and you're going with the right intention, things are just gonna like fall into place, and like you really don't know how it's happening, but it's just like happening.
Yeah.
And it's just really, really cool.
Yeah.
And especially in the world of like, we just love comedy, so that was just a huge and awesome thing.
Yeah, it's super. It's like genuinely bizarre. It's like truly bizarre. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's really. I think you had some questions about comedy, didn't you?
I mean, I guess like we became, especially because Austin has turned into such a great area for comedy. Our love for it has definitely evolved. But, like, I know I always enjoyed comedy, like, when I was younger. I mean, I think you always have, too. I think, like, you talk about, like, you and Jay.
Yeah.
I think that's, like, a really, like, it's not just, like, oh, we're, like, comedy fans because we live in Austin and, like, the mothership is here. Like, comedy's always been important for us. Yeah,
I remember in Spanish class in high school, there was a project where you had to... I think it was like do a report on a artist of Hispanic origin or something like that.
Yeah.
And like I just wanted to I found like I think Pablo Francisco was like a comedian that I really liked at the time, and he was I think Mexican. I don't even know I don't know what's happened to Pablo Francisco since. I don't know if he's Mexican. I'm gonna guess that he's Mexican. And I was like, I was kind of like, stand-up comedians are artists, right? And the teacher was like, yeah, I guess, sure. So like, that was like the one that I decided to go with. It was like a stand-up comedian. Like I always loved comedy. I loved stand-up. I loved SNL as a kid. And my buddy Jay and I, we've been on the podcast, we were always big fans of comedy. We always followed it a lot closer than the general public would, and entertainment generally, but like specifically as it relates to comedy. In high school, like we would make, you know, what do you call it? Like little school movies.
Well, first of all, your school movies were supposed to be a book report.
Yeah.
Like there's no movie. Like the teacher didn't say make a movie.
Well, they did. They said like they would be like, okay, here's the ways that you could like make a project about the book, and one of them was to make a movie about it or something. And we would always make a movie that had very little, if anything, to do with the book. I remember, for example, there was one time where the book was The Scarlet Letter, which is a movie about, or a book about adultery. Yep. And we, the way we like did a report on it was a movie that it turns out it was like a Jerry Springer type, like talk show, where of course like people like always were revealed to have cheated on their spouse, and there was like big fights and arguments. So we did that with like the characters of The Scarlet Letter, which I always found like really funny. We did one,
The Catcher in the Rye.
Well, it was a book about the Catcher in the Rye, but we called it The Matrix in the Rye, and it was basically like a ridiculous like Matrix ripoff.
At this point, I remember like watching that like years later with y'all.
We kept it, and then like I don't know we were probably in our early 20s, and we did like we like showed you what we had come up with, like you and a
name we will not say.
Who shall not be named.
So yeah, and I remember like at this point you like, I mean, you all had to do, I feel like like people had to like cast for it.
Yeah,
we had
like 12 to 15 people like in this thing from like our high school.
People like wanted to be part of y'all.
It was like an hour and a half long. It's like literally like an hour and a half long movie that we shot, and it had a whole script and everything. And like it was, to this day, like we still quote that movie.
The Sun, for sure.
Jay and I will quote it, but it's gotten so popular that now Poozle even quotes the stupid hour plus movie that we made in high school. So it was always something that was really important to me. Mm-hmm. I have mentioned in the past that in college I was always really into like TV production too, and I wanted to be involved in media. So even though I was a psychology major, I basically had a minor in like communications, and I worked at NBC as an intern in college, and that was like huge for me. I was like at 30 Rock at Rockefeller Center, Rockefeller Plaza, where they shoot the Today Show, they shoot SNL, Jimmy Fallon, Conan O'Brien, and I was an intern, like commuting into the city a couple days a week to work there. And there's actually somewhere, I've never actually gotten this photo. It was on some digital camera because the year was like, 2008 maybe? Yeah. So it's like 2008, or maybe 2009. I can't remember. But like it's like a digital camera, and there's like a picture of me on stage on the SNL stage, like where they do the monologue. Mm-hmm. And I've always like wish that I could find that picture, because that would be such a sick picture to have, and it's lost on somebody's digital camera. That's probably long gone at this point. But like that to me was like a huge deal, like having a picture like where they do the monologue for SNL, like that meant a lot to me, because like I was that into comedy.
And then also like being so close to the city, we would go in and out of the city for like on days we had off from school or whatever, to go to a taping of Conan or go to like it was just accessible. Like you would just go basically stand in line and like get shows for the night shows. Yeah. So
and really I think another huge thing is like you, me, and Jay. Like Jay is like as much of a part of our like comedy, little comedy huddle as anybody. We were like huge Howard Stern fans too.
Oh my God, for sure.
Which again, like one of the reasons why we probably have a podcast today. Yeah. Is because we really loved Howard Stern. We listened to that regularly. We were as big of like Stern fans as anybody for a really long time.
We flew up to New York for less than 24 hours. With Dr. Reed, with one of my bosses, because he had an Into the Colbert Show. Yeah. And he's like, listen, we can go up. Howard's doing an interview because he was out promoting his book. Yeah. And he's like, and we can go, like, be in the back offices of Colbert. What's his show, or what is the show?
The Late Show.
The Late Show. Yeah. And we're like, oh, should we? And we're like, why are we even questioning? Like, we're such big fans at that point that we flew out, like, I don't even know, Tuesday, were there for the taping, dinner, and then flew back at like 6 a.m. on a Wednesday.
Yeah, we were there for,
to
I
come
think,
back
less
for
than
work.
24 hours. Yeah.
But like we did it because we were like that big of fans. Like
Yeah.
that's a fangirl.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
that is
Yeah.
a fangirl.
Yeah.
And I remember like going to like we were in the green room where he was and being like, that's a beer, like a water bottle that he probably drank
Yeah.
out of. Like I remember being in that like the green
So,
room.
I mean, like, and Howard always had a bunch of comedians
Yeah.
on, so that was another way of, like, getting even further into the, like, comedy world, and, like, it's something that, like, we have followed comedians forever. Like, even
Yeah.
all the way back to, like, Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn, which was something that I watched a lot and when I was, like, in middle school, I think, and maybe even high school. That was, like, huge, and those were, like, that same group of New York comedians, like, bullshitting. It's always been something that's been, like, a part of my life and something that I've loved
Same here.
in a pretty significant way. So, yeah, what is your...
So like mine
Comedy.
is definitely my parents' love for comedy, especially my dad. Like I remember we'd watch Cheers, we'd watch Seinfeld, we'd watch Frasier, and like seeing like the joy and happiness that like comedy brought to my dad. Even back to like Three Stooges, like that kind of stuff. Like he just like cracks up at it. And so I always loved comedy because of that connection that we would have together, watching like the bloopers and like from outtakes of movies. Steve Martin, my father loved, like, so I have a love for Steve Martin. So it's just, I think my connection is just really growing up with it and seeing like the joy and the happiness that it brought to people that I loved. And then SNL, obviously watching that with like my older siblings, not even getting some of the jokes because I was like so little watching SNL with like my older siblings.
Speaking of the older comedians, Bill Maher
Oh,
had what's his name,
Martin
Short.
Short
on as Jiminy Glick last weekend, and like we were watching, I was dying. Martin Short is maybe the funniest dude ever. Like that dude is an absolute riot, and especially when he's playing Jiminy Glick. Like this is where I'm getting really like nerdy on comedy stuff. That shit is, it just like doesn't get funnier than that. And then last year we saw Steve Martin and Martin Short on stage at the Bass Concert Hall.
Saw as a loosely, but
We went to the Bass Concert Hall, and it's like the weirdest shaped hall, like theater, where like there's like 5 balconies or something. There's like 5 stories, and we were in
the bougie ass people.
Yeah, we were
Dr.
with
Reed.
We were with Dr. Reed, who like loves to give me a hard time, and I got the tickets, and they were like the only tickets left, and they were all the way like top balcony. Like you couldn't even see the entire stage because you're looking like down at the stage, basically.
We get up there and he's like, I didn't know this building was this tall.
There was a screen on stage that was like showing like old clips and stuff, and like you couldn't see the screen because like we were so high. And yeah, he was giving me shit about it the entire time, but it was
really good.
But it was still really, really funny. He's like, I didn't know this building went so high.
Whatever. But I also like the comedy and watching comedians for the creativity.
Okay.
Because like just their perspective and like how they see something happening and like their take on it. And that's where like Tony Hinchcliffe is amazing because he meets some of these people. I mean, all the comedians that get on stage for like the first time, and he just picks up on like the way they say something, the way they look, or as he's interviewing them, and he is just able to roast them or have a quick comment for it. And so watching like the brains of these comedians work, like it is pure genius.
Yeah,
I love it.
For me, the reason why I like comedy so much is obviously like I love to laugh. Who doesn't love to laugh? But if you don't, then that's like the weirdest thing possible. But I like that's the one component. But you're right. It's kind of like I think there's a lot to it. It's like number one is like the idea and the concept itself, and like developing that and like seeing the world differently and like having a perspective. Like the thing that makes most comedy great is like it's something where it's like something that's kind of obvious in some ways, but like just hasn't been presented. You just don't think about it that way, right? Like it's like taking something that you're really familiar with and like that you look at like this, and then you like shift your perspective on it. And you're like, holy shit, like you're right. I never thought of it that way before, or I never saw it that way before. That's cool. So it's like developing like the initial idea of what a joke is, and like the premise is what they call it. Like developing a premise is cool, and then it's the word component. I've said before, like I love words, and I love the way words play together, and like when it comes to word selection, it's one of the reasons I love rap music so much. So it's like taking that premise and then being able to articulate it in a way that hides the ball from you until it's necessary to hit the punchline. I think that's great. There's also a lot of comedians will talk about how economy of words is really important, meaning like you don't want to use more words than are necessary. You want to be like really limited with the number of words that you use and choosing like the very precise words. And like a lot of times the words you're using are like designed to like throw you off the course of where the joke is actually going. So that's the second part, is the word component. And then the third part is the actual performance of it, where it's not enough to just like, it's said all the time that like you could write a joke and like read it, especially like a stand-up comedy joke for the most part. If you just like read it, it's not going to be that funny, but it's the way that it's like performed and the way that it's said and the delivery of it that's like has the impact and has the jokiness to it. So it's kind of like all of those things I think are fascinating. And then it's like the balance between those things. Because sometimes somebody will have like a really awesome premise and like the words aren't great, but they perform it really well. Or maybe it's like a really shitty premise and maybe a really shitty joke, but like the performance is so like hilarious and like boisterous that it just makes you laugh just regardless of like the actual content behind it. That's probably like the weakest form of comedy for most people, I would say, in most people's opinions. And it's kind of like, I think there's so much to dissect with all of those various components when you're watching a comedian and you're experiencing their stand-up. And that's like the stuff that always has resonated with me with that particular art form, because it is an art form.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're getting that creativity from somewhere. It's flowing through them.
Yeah.
Do you have anyone, if I can't even answer this, who would you say is like one of your favorites right now? And then who would you say is like a great, whether here or past?
Who's my favorite right now?
Yeah.
Man, to say my favorite.
Like at this moment, and then again, like then you can do like a big.
I'll just say like the ones that like I love, like I really love right now, who like I think are on like hot streaks, would be like Tim Dillon, Shane Gillis. The last that last special from Matt McCusker was fire.
Yeah, for sure.
So good. Tony Hinchcliffe is on fire, but like I think of him with like Kill Tony more so with like than his actual material, and I don't know what like his. Every time we've seen him, his material is like different.
Yeah, and he
kinda.
does so much crowd work and just like picks up on the energy of the people in the crowd. And a roast master for sure. And
I love Tony, but like I would say like. Yeah, I love him for like the roasting stuff mainly,
for sure.
And that's not to say that I don't like his other material, but like I love the roasting stuff from him. Those are like the main ones that are jumping out to me right now. But like I love Dave Attell.
Yeah.
I love Colin Quinn. Of course, like Dave Chappelle. Yeah. Right, you have to throw him in there. Who else? Some of the like the older guys who like I always really liked, who like I haven't really heard from in a long time, are like Nick DiPaolo. I always really liked Nick DiPaolo. He was like a Northeast guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the ones that are jumping out to me right now.
I love Louis C.K.
Okay, yeah, Louis C.K. too. Yeah,
I know, that's the thing. Like there are so many.
Yeah, Louis C.K. is probably the only one that we haven't seen.
I know there was a South by
and Seinfeld. We haven't seen Seinfeld either.
Yeah,
those are probably like the two that I would say like are big icons that I haven't seen. And I'm not. I like Seinfeld. I don't love Seinfeld, but I feel like he's somebody that like we should.
For sure, and I really want to see him like right now. He's on like a spiritual journey of some sort, which is really cool to see.
I said this. I don't watch movies like ever, and there was like a night where like I put on that Pop-Tarts movie that he put out on Netflix, And in the first like 20 or 30 minutes where it was kind of on, I was like half paying attention. I was like laughing out loud, and I couldn't believe that like I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
So I told you we need to like put it on, and
Yeah.
I want to know if it's like actually as funny as I thought it was the first time I was watching it, because I was not expecting it to be that funny. And it even has people that like I don't really like in it.
Really?
Yeah, it has like Amy Schumer and shit. I do not like Amy Schumer. Let's talk about the comedians. That'd be a fun one. Comedians I don't like.
Oh,
There's so
gosh.
many. There's a lot of those. But yeah, so like Seinfeld would be one that we're like, that would be a bucket list
Yeah.
comedian for me to see, even though.
Well, yeah, he was here in Austin, but I think the tickets sold out like.
Yeah. Oh, and you also, but your point was, that he's on that spiritual kick
Yeah,
lately, because he
for
was doing a
sure.
lot of interviews because of that movie, and yeah, he was killing it. He was like really impressing me with like a lot of the stuff he was talking
I can't
about.
even think of something he said right now.
He was talking about meditation.
Yeah.
He was talking about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Stoicism in general. Yeah. All the kind
And
of shit.
basically like getting your mind right.
Yeah.
Like, I was
Yeah.
like, man. Mm-hmm. And he's like in his 70s or his 70s.
He's
And
70.
He
He
looks
looks
fantastic.
like he's like 50.
Yeah.
What else? What else do we have on the comedy front?
I don't know how much more we can say about comedy
Yeah,
right
I
now, but
This
we can.
is like a meandering.
But we can
conversation.
certainly talk a little bit about our meeting we just had.
All right, you got to get that conversation started. You have to get me back there.
Get you back. Well, I think it was a very interesting meeting. Again, we have talked to this, or you have talked to this person before, and I went to this meeting with you to kind of just discuss what this person can provide for us for
Yeah.
our business.
Uh huh.
And the last meeting you had with him was very focused on like just sell. And you're like, no, like I want to provide value. I have something I'm building. I just don't want to sell.
Yeah.
And so I went into this meeting with you, kind of like just again to hear what he had to say. And you went to him with an idea of what he could provide for us.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, I see like you want me to like do that, but like, why don't we like work on like selling?
Yeah.
Do you want to take it at all from here?
Well, no, you can continue.
So then he started to lay out as far as what his idea is for you.
Yeah.
And
Which
I
is
think-
more of a sell first mentality. And I've talked like on the last couple, or maybe not the last episode, but a few episodes back, a couple times, about my like value over dollar philosophy that I'm like experimenting with. But with that being said, I think to your point, something you were saying was he was talking to me as if I was somebody who needed to make money right now.
the first time.
Yeah, the first
Yeah.
time.
So like I think that's where because he normally works with people who are like, I need money like right now. I need to figure this out right now. So he's like, okay, just go do this, and
Yeah.
like it will just come. It will happen.
Yeah.
But for you, and I think that's what was great about this conversation y'all just had, is he actually like realized, and he actually said it. He called you back after the meeting saying like, I now know who I'm talking to. I'm talking to someone who needs to see like the 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Not just someone who's just like, I need to make money
Yeah,
quick.
because,
like
oh,
you
I'll-
want the vision.
All I got from him in our last conversation really was like the next step. And I'm not just like, I'm all about the next step, but the next step is always based on like what I have as my big picture vision. And and like whenever I do something that isn't part of a big picture vision, then I'm like, well, why did I do that? And if I don't have like an end goal or like an understanding of like where this goes, then it's not worth it for me. Because like I've learned in the past, like law school, for example,
Yeah.
there's a great example of it where it's like, if I don't see myself as an attorney, I shouldn't be going to law school.
Right.
And I went to law school. I didn't see myself as an attorney. And then I'm done. And I'm like, well, I did really well with it, but like, I don't have a next move here. And then I went to software sales. And then I did that for 11 years, but I never saw myself long-term in that. And what I'm doing now is I want to put a long-term vision in place. And I have that long-term vision. Right. I have it. And it's something that we've constructed, like, I think really crystal clear over the last several years. And the universe does keep throwing things in our direction, as we just talked about, to help us get there in a lot of ways. And like and of course, like that vision like shifts from time to time, like based on like the current realities of the situation. But it's always like the same like basic concept with just some adjustments here and there. And he kept telling me what the next step was. And the next step sounded to me like becoming an online coach, which I've said is not my vision. That's not my goal. I'm not a personal trainer. I'm not an online coach. I want to be the short Jack Tony Robbins. And it's like, well, I don't know what the next step what you're telling me helps me become short Jack Tony Robbins.
Right.
And
he's like, no, you just like, and again, this meeting was much better.
And this one was a lot better in the sense where like, I told him what some of my blockers were in terms of like why I wasn't making that next step, and a lot of that has to do right now with our real estate stuff, which I mean, it's worth mentioning.
Yeah.
We have both of our houses listed now. The house that we live in is the bigger and the nicer and the more expensive of the two. And we've already dropped price a couple times, and we just like this week we're like, dude, we want to get out. Like we want to move on and get. Look what you're doing. You're doing this thing.
I do this. So at some point during the show, like usually around this point, I like start to play with my bracelet in between the cracks
of the table.
Of the table. I don't know why. I'm like, okay, towards the end, let me go. I play with it.
So
I feel like
because it's when you get uncomfortable.
I mean, maybe.
I think it's when you get uncomfortable.
But I'm not uncomfortable about this conversation.
I know. Well, we need to be out of the houses because we want to know where we're going next. We can't make any determination on where we're going next until the houses are sold, and then this way we know how much money we get from the sales of these homes, which is going to dictate quite a bit of how we plan out the future. But also like the next place that we live is going to be our facility and our gym as well.
Correct.
Which is critical to the overall vision that I have, which includes like training clients there, shooting content there, having events, et cetera, et cetera. And hopefully it's like not just the gym, but it's a whole, I want there to be a lot more to it as well.
I kind of keep making the joke that like the house we're in right now is like the Beetlejuice house. Like, get us out.
Yeah, because we're stuck. We feel stuck in it.
We feel like stuck. It's like a really weird feeling. But I think having this meeting today really helped to like pull us out of like, well, like to get to the next point, like you don't like have to be in the house right now.
Yeah, it's because I have my sights set on like my plan. And he's telling me to kind of take this like alternate route that doesn't require me to wait for the homes to be sold.
Right.
It's not wrong. It's not wrong. I don't know. So I guess all of this is to say the conversation today, and again, I'm processing it in real time because we haven't really had a chance to like debrief fully on this yet, is getting me to realize that the strategy that I had in mind is dependent now on these homes being sold, and
something that's out of our control,
and which is out of our control.
Like that's probably the only thing in our lives as it is like out of control.
But with it being said, in the meantime, I'm laying the foundation of a business with my programming and the business model that I'm building out. Yeah. So like, and like all the marketing content and collateral and everything else that goes along with it from a marketing, sales, and deliverable perspective. So I'm doing that, and I'm just kind of like, well, I'm going to start selling once we have the houses sold and we know what we're doing and we have a facility. And then I'll also have a lot of like the back end stuff built out as well. And this is all things I've talked about previously. And he's kind of saying like, well, you don't need all that stuff necessarily. You can start selling now without all those other components, which I think there is validity to in a certain way, just not the way that I was understanding it last time.
For sure. Yeah.
But I also think that he's meeting me halfway in the sense of now he sees like, okay, he isn't just trying to be an online coach.
Exactly. And like he's like, I feel like you can get the clients and do like the selling part of it, and like when it's ready to like flip on that switch of like, okay, now we have the facility, we have everything. It's not like, well, now I got to find clients. Like you
Yeah.
already have people to pull from.
Yeah.
Which again, it does make sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It does. It does.
For
Like,
sure.
I,
But it's a completely different way of like looking at it, of like what you were originally thinking.
yeah.
And like right now in the model, like of the model you have and like the direction you want to take, there is like, besides like your current clients, there's no other money coming in.
Yeah.
And so like that's of course then a stress of like, we need to sell these houses. We need to like get out of these mortgages.
Yeah.
Where like
Yeah.
if you have like the online thing going and you have more income coming in, then I think that like that pressure.
It's relieved a little bit, but it's still like,
No,
it's still frustrating.
of course, but it's going to be less frustrating because you're not then concerned about
Yeah.
where that
Yeah.
where that money's coming from and watching like the bank account just go like this each mortgage payment.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt that I'm postponing driving revenue until the homes are
Right.
sold and that
You
we
are.
know what we're doing next. I am obviously doing that. And that's not, I don't think that that's realistically a viable option. And it's not that I haven't been doing work. Again, I have been doing tons of work to build out the foundation of the business, just not the sales and marketing side.
Exactly.
And I guess it makes sense at this point to start to, and it was kind of like what I was doing already to some extent, but maybe not as like aggressively as it would be necessary, is like start building out that like marketing component a little bit sooner. The biggest thing, and this is what I was saying on the way over here, is because I have like all these different things, like there's a lot of day-to-day stuff, and like I've offloaded that to the assistant. But this person that we spoke to today, if he can map out what a year plan looks like, and then I pay him like a flat rate plus a percentage of whatever I'm making revenue-wise, he is the one who's actually like implementing these steps. I'm focused on what I want to do, which is the coaching and the sales component and the like being the face of it, and he's handling like the operational side of things. So he did a good job of selling me today. He's continuously, I think he said, chipping away at me.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's because you have such a vision, and I kind of made this point also on the way over here of he's dealing with people that again make money, entrepreneur, like the three different areas of being like an entrepreneur, and like you are an entrepreneur, but like the creative entrepreneur, like you want to like you have a vision, you want it to grow, you want to put love into it, and you kind of have this. It's not a luxury, but like you do have this ability to say like, I don't need to make like, I have money saved up. Like we're good.
Yeah.
I don't need to make knee-jerk reactions. I can take my time.
Yeah.
And I think he's realizing that with this conversation, that he's like, okay, like this, he has a vision. He wants to build this out. We just don't have to go into like sale mode right now. So let me sit with him and let's really map this out. To meet you
he said, like, gun to your head.
Yeah.
He said, gun to your head, how do you like make money today? And I go, but I don't have a gun to my head.
Yeah.
Like,
and
I
he
don't.
like didn't know what to say. He was like, oh, yeah.
But I think there's maybe a part of me that needs to start acting like, and I trust me, like we talked about the fucking work that I've been doing over the last few weeks, and the fact that I was having panic attacks even though I wasn't panicking.
I can't believe you said that.
I didn't have. Yeah, I don't know. It's not. I didn't panic, but I had an attack.
You had attacks.
I had
Your body
attacks.
weight, yeah.
And we worked through it, and that's because I was working so much. I'm working and I'm putting stuff down. We've said that being productive, being active doesn't necessarily mean being productive, but I believe I'm being really productive. I have a lot to show for it.
Yeah.
But like. Yeah, I don't know. Like I am acting like I have a gun to my. I'm working as if I have a gun to my head, and I'm behaving as if I have a gun to my head. But I'm just maybe not in the way that this person would working on the things that this person would have me be working on.
Sure, and I think again he was saying gun to your head, like you need to make money.
Yeah, exactly.
So like you're doing like the creative side and the artsy side and like the building the coursework out, but you're not like getting money on that yet.
I'm not getting the money
so
yet.
Yeah.
So like I'm working like I have a gun to my head on like the creative stuff. Because you know what? Like the reality is, okay, like this is a fucking interesting point to make. Like I do have a gun to my head creatively. Mm-hmm. The gun to my head creatively is like me having this time to be in this flow state, which I've been living in for the last 6 months. Like, honestly, I talked about how creative I've been, talking about like comedy. You said like comedy is about letting that flow through you. We talk about this all the time on this podcast. Like the way that beautiful art is created is by putting all your stressors and problems, like keeping those at bay. And then like letting that source flow through you, or like using that to like channel that energy into something crazy, and it's like into something beautiful. And I'm in a place now where I have this roadmap. I have this like 3-year roadmap starting at the beginning of this year till 3 years from, I guess, what was that? 2027. I have a 3-year vision. And this like first year is, the way I see it, is like this is my opportunity to put money out of my mind, to put making money and selling out of my mind, and to build something fucking awesome. And like allow that lack of that flow state to just develop and create things like this podcast, for example, and be free enough where I can be creative and like continually build this vision. Because I know that once like January rolls around and now that 3 years has become 2 years, guess what? Like I'm going to start feeling a lot more tense and tight. And now I'm going to go like, dude, now I have to start making money.
Right.
And then I'm going to have to be in sell mode. And if I'm in that sell mode now, then it limits my ability to be free and creative. And it's like, so I do have a gun to my head. I have a creative gun to my head. I have a gun to my head in terms of my time in which I could be free and loose and artistic and put cornrows in my hair.
Right. And I think you have had 6 months of that, and now the universe has presented you somebody who is able to, and he even said it in this meeting, like get you out of your own way.
Yeah.
Like he's going to be able to say like, okay, so like you have all this creation, you have all these things you've created. I'm going to help you get like the base going of your business. And then what we're going to do is just add on each layer of your creation.
Yeah.
And I think that's like why has come into our life and now at this point to give you that, to assist you with that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing that. Yeah. I'm seeing that.
And so, like if anything, like shoot, it's like we're going to be doing it sooner than the 2025, January 2025.
Yeah. So that's where I think it is. And because right now it's like, there is a gun to my head. It's like, I know that eventually I'm going to start having money concerns. And that's where my salesmanship is going to kick in. And I'm going to get back into like grind on sales and marketing and money mode. Because like that's going to have to happen eventually. And it's like right now is my like free, open, artsy, creative space. And it's like, and honestly, it's been fucking awesome. It's been sick. Like, this year has been fucking awesome. Mm-hmm. I will say that. I want that to be really, really clear. The last 6 months, 6 full months, because we're at the end of June now. Mm-hmm. The last 6 months of my life since I left the corporate world, and I've been doing this stuff on my own, and we've been making this podcast, and I've been in this creative space, has been like unlike anything that I could ever have expected, and I genuinely am having so much fun.
Yeah, and you've had so much growth.
Yeah,
like
in tons of ways.
In tons of ways.
Yeah,
learning more just about yourself and learning
and
how you react to certain things.
It's also not to say that like last year wasn't awesome too, because like it definitely was. Like we were having so much fun, but like being truly free of the corporate stuff is, man, like you could I think you could probably sense it on me. And I probably have sensed it like throughout the episodes that we've had here. And like, I do like genuinely love it. And it's like, I know that the clock is ticking and I'm squeezing out as much of this creativity as I can.
You're looking at it wrong. Like you keep saying the clock is ticking, but like,
I know
the creativity doesn't have to stop. You're now, someone has come into our lives through the like universe presenting it of being like, okay, here's someone who now will like take on the operations and that like mundane crap that like you still don't really want to do, and you can still stay creative and still be the face of the brand and still be the face of it, and then like there's someone in the background doing it, and that's okay. Like that's kind of like what you do. Like you think Tony Robbins is putting out his own content or coming up with like these check-ins with like no, it's not how this works.
And I think that's what I'm starting to see is that this guy, if he, and I already have my other consultant too, so it's like I have to split the difference between both of them and figure out which one helps me with what components. But like if this guy can map out a year and then just break down the things that he would have to do, break down the things that I would have to do, and his share of those tasks allows me to still do what I'm doing right now, which like feels right to me, then it's like it's a perfect match made in heaven. Yeah, and this guy's the man too. Like I'm gonna be honest, like he probably isn't listening, but this guy's like the great guy, super dope guy. Yeah. And like I do think that he could bring a ton of value, but absolutely. The value that he brings can't be at any like spiritual or like energetic like too much of an energetic expense to me.
What do you mean by that?
Like in terms of like the amount of energy that I have to provide to him, the amount of like quite like even money that I would provide to him, and like can't sap my creative energy right now because like I am in like such a flow state. I think you have to like. I know. That's what I'm saying. He has to be able. If I can offload those things to him and he can help me implement the plan that he sees fit, then like then it makes sense.
And then you can get into like that sale mode, but not have to be. I think that's where.
No, sales mode is great. I love.
I know that's what I'm saying. But like then like the aftermath of the sale.
Yeah.
That's what you're not wanting to do because that you feel like is going to pull you out of that creative.
That's the operations stuff though.
And so like if you have this person doing it, then like there's no gun to your head. Yeah. There's no like. If getting all the right people part of your team.
If I get to just do my calls with my clients and just work with them and just help them with their problems and answer their questions and help them overcome their hurdles, that's like that is like my flow state. Like that's what I want to do, and that when I say being creative, like that is also when I'm in that like true open. Not like nothing can stop me. I'm like in the zone. I'm present. I'm getting shit done. Like that is where I'm at my best. When I have to do that, but beforehand, I was like putting programming together in WeStrive. Shout out Corey, WeStrive and Just Press Record Studios. If I'm like putting programming together in WeStrive and like dealing with like formatting on documents. And then like scheduling meetings like around those calls, it saps my ability to be the best version of myself in those conversations.
And you're much like there's manager and maker, and you're much more maker.
Yeah.
And so like that's where you need to put that energy towards. Yeah. That's how you operate. That's how you work.
Yeah.
And so.
All right, enough. This is the weirdest episode ever.
We had like an interruption.
I know. This was a strange episode. This was what I can't wait to watch it back.
Watch you fanboy.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to. That part was weird. The part where they walked in was weird. And then like the fact that like the gun, like that gun to my head comment, and like the fact that. That's the true gun to my head is like the fact that eventually I'm going to have a gun to my head. That's kind of something I've never really thought of before, and something that I knew that I was exploiting, but I didn't really like think of it in those terms. So that was something that I genuinely came up with like for the first time right here, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe we'll wrap it up.
I think so.
All right.
Love you.
Do you think that by the next episode we'll be back in the green room at Mothership?
It is July 4th week coming up.
You know what?
Maybe,
Don't
why
say
not?
it. Okay, maybe.
Sure.
Maybe we will. We'll let you know. All right.
You might see us there.
See you, everybody.